Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense. Wanted to shoot a market update video for you because it's October 27th. We had our daily and our weekly close a couple of hours ago. So I want to talk about what I'm seeing. I want to talk about whether I'm a bull or a bear, what I expect this week, all that good stuff. Before I do that though, please do me a huge favor. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button on this video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So first things first, let's talk about Bitcoin and this insane pump. Obviously, did a video a few days ago talking about this, saying that I didn't expect the pump to be this large. Okay. Did expect a bounce. We had bullish divergence on the daily, which I talked about in a previous video, right? We had price making, we go to a daily chart, price was making lower lows while RSI was making higher lows. I'll just tell you guys, put that in your bag of tricks, because when you see daily divergence like that, especially three divergences, right? Boom, 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 boom. I did that too quick. Let me point this out if you don't know what I'm talking about. So we had a low here. Oh, my magnet's on. Let me draw a trend line. So we had a low right here, a lower low, and a lower low. So we had three of them, right? Right here we had a low, higher low, and higher low. So that's what I call a triple divergence, okay? And if you see those on a daily, it almost, and not always, but almost always means a 10 to 20% bounce. In this case, we got about a 40% bounce. I do think that has to do with the China news. I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so we got this huge bounce. So now, of course, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people have flipped where they're back into euphoria. They're back into full-on bull mode. We're going to 10K, 15K, 16K by the end of November, all that kind of stuff. So here's what I'm seeing, guys. First off, the bounce was expected. The height of the bounce wasn't. But I think what happened was China came out with the news, and people are saying, oh, it's China. They're buying in, they're buying in, they're buying in. I don't think so. I think it's speculators who were buying in, expecting the retail public to, overinvest because of China. The reality is this: China did not endorse Bitcoin. They endorsed blockchain. They said they want to do more with blockchain. Blockchain is not Bitcoin, guys. Bitcoin is something completely different from blockchain. They're separate entities. You have to understand that. The reality is this: if you put on your thinking cap and you forget about this, crypto Kool-Aid stuff for a second, no government in the world is going to release control of their money by moving to something as decentralized as Bitcoin. They're not going to give up their standard, right, which is how they control their populace. They're not going to about to give that up to move to Bitcoin, where the power goes back to the quote-unquote people, right? That's never, ever going to happen, guys. Well, I shouldn't say never, because nothing's impossible, but it's highly unlikely that any government will ever do that, okay? If anything, they'll develop their own cryptocurrency on the blockchain. Now, because of this China news, a lot of the Chinese alts are pumping. For example, NEO, I know today NEO had a 40% pump in one day. It was good for me. I happen to have a bag of NEO that I bought at $16 back in 2017, so it was nice to see some life, breathing back into it, but I don't expect that to be sustained, okay? So what do I expect with Bitcoin? Well, first off, here's our weekly chart. This is the super bearish chart. Remember, this line in the sand is super important. Here's our descending triangle. Facts are facts, guys. I think the triangle is busted, right? I think we've moved out of the triangle. I don't think we can really talk about the triangle anymore, which means that this target down at 1100, it's also invalidated. Does that mean that we're not in a bear market? Of course not. See right here how we've peaked above this red line? Well, right now we're not way, but right now we're clearly above it. But this is a new weekly candle. If this candle happens to come back down and say close down around $83 or $8,500, this line will tuck back down under that RSI, and we'll have the same thing that we had right here in February of 2018. See right there, it just barely snuck above the line, but when that week closed, that following week, right? So this was the green week where it snuck above it. Following week, boom, came down, and right back under that line we went. So it's entirely possible that this week is going to bring that right back down, and we'll have a repeat of February, which, by the way, is what I think this is, because in February that was like the last pump, so whales could try to unload as many bags as possible before the real bear market truly kicked off. I do think we're in a bear market still. I still think this is an event. Whales are using this to unload their last bags, and I think they're trying to do that before the bear market truly kicks off and this thing starts going down further. Now, there's another reason that I think that. I'm going to show you a 3-day chart. See this orange line to this orange line, this orange box? This is 3-day RSI, guys, okay? Well, it should be. Let me switch back to the 3-day chart. And if you look in a bull market, right, see how it was mainly above that area, putting in just higher highs and crazy overbought RSI over and over again. We get way overbought and then we correct and get overbought and correct and overbought and correct. Well, then in the bear market, see how we just played in this area between these two lines? Basically, we had a range. If you look over here, we followed the bottom of it, and that was the bottom of the bear market. We blasted right through it. We came back down into it. Right here, we touched the bottom, just like right here in February of 2018. We came up, put in a bullish divergence. I missed this one. If I'd have seen the 3-day divergence, I would have definitely thought the trend and went long. I screwed up there. But right here, we had a RSI putting in almost a double bottom. It was slightly higher than this one over here. So there was a bull divergence there. And if you look, same thing we had here, right? Down, up, down, higher low, and then boom, right back to the top of that range. So down, up, down with a higher low, boom, right back to the top of that range. Again, right now it's trying to peek its head above it because this 3-day candle just opened. But if the next 3 days are bearish and then we start retracing, this will tuck right back down inside that box and we'll have basically a repeat of this area right here, okay, which is the April of 2018. It's this pump right here. Okay, so until we break up above that and we close above it and then with upward momentum, I'm still looking at this as a dead cat bounce in a bear market. Okay, point blank. Now, with that being said, am I trading it? No, I'm not shorting this with a swing trade. Okay, I'm going to be scalping the market because these moves are really big, volatile moves. So it's very easy to get a 3 to 5% day trade in these types of conditions. Okay, very simple to do that. Well, I shouldn't say simple. It's very, well, yeah, simple's the right word. Not easy, but simple, right? There's a simple setup that works in these conditions. You just have to be sitting at your desk and watching for it. And it fired several times today. Unfortunately, I went to sleep about noon. I missed it. When I woke up at 7, I woke up at 6:55 just before the daily close. I looked and there the setup had fired several times and I was a little bit bummed out. But my group members actually saw it and they actually posted about it in the group, so that was cool to see. So that's what I think on the weekly and the 3-day. I still think we're bearish, but I'm not going to try to short it on a swing trade because, guys, my timing has been off the last week. I lost several thousand dollars on Friday because I tried to short the market and it steamrolled through me. So it's not just about thinking the market is going down. It's about knowing when it's going to go down. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how long this thing is going to be propped up like this. It could be that we get basically right here we had a reverse BART right down, chop, boom, up. So we had an upside down BART. Could be that now we're getting ready to get a regular BART up, chop, sideways, and then boom, down. And again, this is a 3-day chart. So this chop, this was a month-long chop, right? So we could be up here and we could chop sideways all of November, right? And then not drop until December. So until the market makes up its mind of which direction it's going, I'm going to have to just scalp it, okay? Now, let's look at some Fibonacci levels real quick. We can look at this most recent move. First, actually, I want to show you, let's look at 3-day. Turn off these fibs. Remember the other day I showed you guys that what we did was we came down from this high. If we draw it down to the low, this came up and tagged the 50% level. And then often that's a continuation trade. So often what you get is you get something that looks like this. Down, up to the 50, and then more downside, right? Well, now look what we've done. This is interesting. If we look at a 4-hour chart, we've actually done the exact opposite, okay? We came up, we came down, tagged the 50, right? And now we're moving up again. So here's what I'm almost expecting. This almost, and remember, I'm not an Elliott wave trader, but this almost looks like A, B, C. And if that's what we get, the C leg typically is going to bring it down to the 61.8 fib of that move. So it would bring us down to around $8,500. Now, why is that level important? You guys remember what 8,500 was? 8,500. Man, I love technical analysis. People say you can't get an idea of what's going on in the markets. They're just insane. Okay, what's 8,500, guys? 8,500 is the 50% fib on the bigger level, right? So if we come up like this and come down to 8,500, we'll be sitting right at the 50 level, which means this is important. It could be that we are actually in a bull market. It could be that this ends up being our higher low, right? We had a high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, right? Higher high, right? It depends how you look. Anyway, look, it was like this, right? Down, 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 boom, lower high, lower low, higher high. Could be that this ends up being our higher low, and that this ends up being an entry point for long positions, and then it's just up from there. Okay. So am I watching that? I'm watching that. Okay. That's the level that I'm going to be really watching. Now you might say, James, don't you regret not buying at 7,300? And the answer is, yeah, of course. You know, in a perfect world, I would have bought at 7,300 and I would have caught this pump. But full disclosure, guys, I would have sold this pump. I wouldn't have held it, right? I would have been taking profits around 8,800 bucks. I just would have. I never expected it to go that high. And what you want to look for in a bull market is you really want to look for some structure so you don't catch a falling knife. So the only reason I regret not going long there is because I missed the pump. I missed that great swing trade. I don't regret not going long on a hold position, right? If we come down to 8,500 and I'm able to buy a hold position at 8,500, right? It retests this old levels here, fills in. By the way, we have this huge gap now, right? If it fills in this gap, all that kind of good stuff, sure, I would be open to taking a long position on Bitcoin. It won't be a crazy large position. It won't be like, you know, if we got down here to 4,000, you know, I was planning on buying, you know, double-digit Bitcoin, right? Probably 20, 30 Bitcoin at that level. But, you know, if we only get down to 8,500, I'll probably just buy back a handful of Bitcoin, right? Maybe like 5, okay? And maybe not even that much. Maybe I'll just buy back like 3 or 4. I don't know. Probably no more than 5 though. If we get down to 8,500, that ends up being the bottom. Okay, 5 Bitcoin is still pretty good, right? If it goes up to 50 grand in the future, it's still $250,000. Okay, and I can still trade. I'll still have enough money left over that I can trade with. You know, I don't want to put in my full trade fund at that level. Okay, so that's what I'm watching. It's really, really exciting right now because of the way these Fibonacci levels are playing. Right, again, on the big time frame, it looks like we're probably going to come down to test the 50 of the uptrend. On the daily chart, you know, we just came up and tested the 50 of the downtrend, right? And then on the 4-hour chart, we came down and tested the 50 of this uptrend. So all kinds of crazy stuff happening right now, all right? But we are still technically, remember this, we're still technically underneath the 21-week moving average, which is supposedly the bull bear line, right? If you put a lot of stock in that. And you can see in the bear market that several times price did come up. It had a false break here, had, you know, rejected here, rejected here, rejected here. So this is really the first test from the underside. This is the first bearish retest of that line. And so far it has acted as resistance. We snuck above it on a wick, closed under it. And so far today, right, which is only 3 hours in, we went up, tested it, and failed. So it will be interesting to see if we can close above that or if this just ends up being cliche resistance before going a leg lower. And if we do go a leg lower from here and the 8,500 doesn't hold, I think the next level to watch is going to be down around the $6,400 level. Okay, $6,400 is going to be, you know, definitely worth keeping an eye on. All right. So that is what I'm seeing on Bitcoin, guys. It's, you know, probably not surprising that I haven't flipped to a bull yet. And if you're asking yourself, you know, what would flip me bullish? I just told you, right? If we come back on a retracement of this and we test this neckline, we test that $8,500 level, right? And it starts to move back up, then I think that you've got to say that the bottom is in, that this was our bottom, and that we're going to go ahead and resume the bull market, okay? And in that case, I think the next leg up could take us as high as 16 to 20 grand for sure, guys, because what would happen is then this entire move would end up being a bull flag, right? So what you could do is you could then measure this move from the bottom down here, right? This is just going to be a rough estimate. So right around $10,600 and move this over to here. That ends up being our bottom. Then the next breakout target is going to be around $18,000. 18,000 bucks if you look at it on a monthly chart. Look at this. That would be right up in this range right here. Okay? And then very likely what would happen is if that, you know, happens, then it would retrace from there, probably come back down, test these old levels around 13 to 14,000, and then keep moving up from there. One thing about this, guys, that I want to point out, and somebody mentioned this earlier about how events are often priced in crypto, because everyone is expecting the halving to pump Bitcoin. Typically what happens is the pump happens after the halving, but it very well could be that we're going to front run that pump. Okay, same thing happened with Litecoin this year. It really front ran the pump, And that's one of the reasons I was able to sell so high and get out when I did. So it could be that Bitcoin is trying to front run front run the halving this time. So it could be that instead of waiting the halving, that we're going to pump into the halving, and that unlike the past where the halving kicked off a bull, that we'll actually get our retracement right at the halving and then, go up from there. So overall, this isn't ideal. This isn't what I wanted to see, certainly, but it's not. It is surprising, but it's not like completely out of the realm of possibility. Oh my God, how did that happen? Blah blah blah, that type of thing, right? We're still, well underneath our old highs. So I'm a bear until those certain conditions that I mentioned are met. Also, when it comes to Wyckoff logic, it's entirely possible, guys, that this is just one more test of supply before we move lower. So don't forget that, right? Pumps happen in bear markets, like I talked about in my last video. In case you missed it, I'll mention it again quickly. This pump in February was 100% pump in a bear market. This pump was around 50%. This pump was over 40%, right? So pumps do happen in bear markets. They're specifically meant to shake people out. And you can see here after this triangle broke, it did have this big pump before it went lower. And also, same thing happened. It won't show up on this chart, but you can go back and look in 2015. The same thing happened when they had their down, up, descending triangle. They had a huge pump right after it that shook a lot of people out of their short positions, caused people to FOMO in, and then Bitcoin actually made a lower low. All right. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, please be sure and give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget that I'm literally some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, which means that nothing in this video is financial advice or trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional investment advice before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency. Don't forget, you can check the description for links where you can follow me on TradingView, Twitter, and also join my free Facebook group. This is James with Crypto Common Sense. Trade safe.